Peter Schmalfa here with my week 6 update. A good portion of this week was actually trying to figure out how do I give it a memory of like the progress that I'm making in the game, how things are set up. Since I still had the objective of trying to learn how to build a game myself, meaning I wanted to actually be doing the work, which I'm still doing. But if I ran into a problem where I couldn't figure out why something wasn't working properly, or if I needed to like do a bunch of research into like different like blueprints and variables and how the relationship between all those things, the more complicated and nuanced relationships of the Unreal Engine, instead of having to take screenshots or try to write everything out, in those instances, I felt the MCP actually would be a better use because I could actually say, just use the MCP, read only access, try to figure out what's going on because of my newness to this. I might not be able to communicate or figure this out on my own. And it was been super helpful to have something to help me dive into fixing bugs. So what I came up with on the screen here is the kind of engine that helps me put all that stuff together. The project is also set up with the idea of a plan. And so since I've got a lot of work to do on this, I know over time I'm going to have like small pieces of things that I'm going to be building out. And so right now in the plan I'm currently working on, which you can see I've got an active plan here. Inside of this, I've got Ninja Bot item use. And from the previous video, you may remember I had purchased some plugins from a vendor called NinjaBot, and they had an interaction plugin which let me interact with items. And so in my game, I wanted to be able to throw items, which I got working in the previous video with being able to just like kind of have my controllable character throw items. But when I found the AI needed to do the same thing, it needed to do things like how close am I to the item? Is this item able to be picked up and thrown? Is this an advantage for me to throw that versus just throwing a punch or backing up? And so there needed to be a bit more of like the like normal what a human would do. Like they wouldn't just throw an item because it's there. It's like is this better than throwing a punch or backing up or moving or things like that? And so I wanted to kind of balance all that stuff out. And so what I was able to do in these plans was kind of come up with a for specifically this item interaction stuff, like to consider just that aspect of it. And so what's nice about this setup is that now I can come in and create a plan that says, okay, for the next however long it's going to take, I want to tackle this specific feature. And what it'll do is it'll create a document, a structured document, which you can see here. I actually have a template. And so all of these files from the template are what gets created with every plan. And then basically it keeps track of like the state of the plan, what we've completed, and then I have a history of everything going forward. And then some of that history, which is what is important here, it gets transferred to product knowledge. So in this case, product knowledge is I've got a document, for example, like how I've set up the Ninja interaction setup, like what the variables are called, things like that. And then that has been super handy for anytime I'm trying to ask a question where I need to like do something specific. The instructions for the agent is to basically make sure you understand these things and that you're considering these when you're coming up with plans or answering questions. And then that now it's easier for me to just say, oh, this plugin uses, or this thing I'm trying to do uses this specific variable or this specific set of functions in the event graph, and it's been great for that. Joining that to an MCP where that becomes helpful. And so I've got an MCP that is specifically for Unreal Engine 5.7, and it runs so that it can connect and look at all the things that I've got set up, which has been the last half of the week that's actually got me to the point where I can have a working AI. I was able to on my own figure out how to get the AI bot to throw a punch, so it was like a character versus a character. But when I had an item that was on the ground that was had its own behaviors, even though I had a controllable character that could throw the ball, for whatever reason, the AI couldn't figure it out. Turned out what it was is that it was is something I would have never known because I did, again, being new at making games. The item was too low, and so there's a plane that is an interaction plane that the character, the AI bot, can kind of move around in, and it knows that these are all the things I can interact with. And so on that plane, the balls and the throwable items and things like that I had were below that plane, so they were technically invisible, like to the AI. So it just needed to lower that and then make some commands, and then magically everything worked. But I didn't know what the navigation plane even was or any of that stuff, and so those are all things that because of the AI, I got to learn how all this stuff works, and that's kind of the whole point of this exercise is that I want to learn these things and I want to get my hands dirty doing the work myself. And I don't want AI to just do it for me because I want the experience of learning how to do it. But I also know that I don't know the basics and the vocabulary and these things like what a navigation plane even is, and like that items have to be able to be detected by AI so that they can figure it out in the game, like makes sense conceptually, but not knowing how to do that, there's no way I would have figured that out without this tool. So I think in the very first video of this tool is I had a bunch of documentation that I'd already created about how I wanted the game to function. And then now I've got specific skills for the AI to use, as you can see in here. So that being said, I do feel like it's worth showing you how like what the AI looks like in action. So you can see here, I basically said that I'm on a cleanup phase with the AI bot. I've gotten everything working, and what's been great about this is that like I've spent enough time with it where I can kind of course correct the AI itself. And so when I needed to do things like give clear instructions, it is doing an amazing job of that because I've had to interact with this enough where I don't want it to overwhelm me with instructions. I also don't want it to just like assume I know where everything is or how things should get connected. And so I've got things like mermaid chart capability in here. And then each task that's being broken down, you can kind of see how it's telling me I should wire everything up. So this is, again, since I wanted to do all the work myself, I want it to give me the instructions for like, oh, you want to be in this specific blueprint on this graph. Here's the connection points that you should make everything connected to. And at the end of it, you can take a break and start playtesting, or don't compile yet. We still got other things to do. It's been great. What was happening is it was still making recommendations that felt like they weren't right. So I had the bot. I knew that whenever it came close to me and I wanted it to fight me and punch me, it could do that. But for whatever reason, and when it got close to an item, wherever it was at that could be throwable, all the debugging in the world was saying like, "Oh, I have an item. I'm near an item. I can throw the item. I'm just not going to." And that's where I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. So, but I was, I'm a software developer, so I was like, it seemed like there was something going on here. So basically, what I asked here was in this block, where I was like, "Hey, the AI has a locomotion, but more importantly, it also correctly throws punches, which is an input control." I was like, "Should we compare how we got that working to this item interaction for pick up and throw?" This is, yeah, I had been debugging this for 3 days at this point. In my head, we had a working AI interaction with what I perceived as an input that caused a trigger to happen for the character where they could throw a punch. And because it worked for my character, and I know that I got to work on the AI side of things, that conceptually, if I compared in the game, like Unreal Engine, this item interaction that wasn't working to the punch throwing, which was working, that even though they're technically different because the one was like character versus character and the other one was just interacting with an item, that maybe there's like like some sort of signal or an event, or like we're doing something fundamentally different with the way that the punch was happening than what the throwable items were having. So it did some research, and it came back and it was basically like, yeah, actually you're right, this is exactly what's going on. There's some different functions that are happening, and it made some recommendations for changes, saying that like basically the reason it wasn't working, and the reason punches were working, is that there was this extra step that was happening, and maybe we should try that. So it explained it. I did the test, and then it worked. So after that, I was like, hey, that's great. Can we please just make sure this is documented, because this is going to be a lot of what we do. Like a lot, we're going to be building a lot of interactions and a lot of like punches and kicks and different types of combat things, and I want the AI to fully leverage that, but I don't want to go through this every single time where I'm trying to figure out how to like get the AI to do what the controllable character could do. That took the majority of the week, honestly. So this has been a long journey just to get the AI going, but it was a learning curve, just because I've obviously never done it before, but it was also just like how do you debug this in a way that's helpful. So next, what I want to show you is the bit of kind of the crazy complex world of what's been going on for the last week. Um, so yeah, blueprints, if you haven't seen these before, they get a little complicated, and this is not the most complicated of them all. So some of these look like this, and they get crazy. So they're this is one of them, and this is the finish interaction for the item test. Basically, because what needs to happen here, that I had throwable items that were either on the left or right hand side of the character as they're moving. I also wanted them to slightly turn towards the item so they could pick it up, but then they'd have to turn back so that they can throw the item in time, and they have to be able to throw it at the direction of where the character is at. But I didn't want the item to appear to teleport, just magically into their hand. So I wanted to say, oh, the item's over here. I'll reach over here and grab it. But that also meant that attaching the item to the character's hand had to be timed. So then I had to learn how to do that, where it wasn't just like, magically the ball just popped up in their hand while they're standing there. The character animation bends over, and at the point where their hand is down on the ground, and if they're reaching towards the item, it could snap to their hands basically. And then when they stand up and then they go to throw the item, they have to release the item. And that means that at some point, the animation, when it gets to a certain point in the animation, it has to trigger a release. So all that stuff had to be created. And yeah, like there was a lot to that. So that throwing animation was complicated, and that's where all these things end up spending a lot of time learning these things. But once I've done a couple of them, I feel like I get a little bit more like understanding of how all this stuff is working each time. And so that now I think today was the first time where I was like, is it possible that this is what's going on? And it was like, oh yeah, actually that might be a case. And then I had actually started to figure out like solutions to things. So it's 6 weeks of learning, but obviously I'm still new at this, but like doing it and learning it by actually building myself is proving now I'm actually starting to get a grasp of this stuff, and that's been great. Um, so I'm going to do just to show you like actually the progress this last week, and we'll go ahead and do a quick play test. So you can see now, like I'm not even doing anything. The character on the right just picked up an item and threw it at me. Let me click into the game real quick. So now I can do the same thing. I can pick up an item. You can see I pick it up and throw it. It hits them. They take damage. I also added like stamina into here. So now if we start throwing punches at each other, you can see my stamina drains rather quickly. Theirs does too. There's so many things that I don't like about this. You can see the bot that's on the right here. Every time I back up, it's basically like trapping me. And it's also walking off of camera. And when it throws a punch, it can do these weird gliding things on the ground that aren't supposed to be. There's so many things that need to be fixed. But for now, I'm like, you know what? Like, I just want it to be able to walk around, throw punches, pick up items and throw it at me. But for the most part, mechanically, everything seems good. I do feel like the speed of everything is super slow. Like now, I think I used regular animations just that came from Mixamo, but now when I'm looking at this, it's just like everything with the punches and the running, even like it feels really slow. So I think I'm gonna have to tweak that a bit, but that's all stuff that I can do here, like in the future. I think just getting the mechanics working is good for now. This is what I talked about last week too, where it's just there's a lot of fine tuning that needs to happen in here, and obviously being able to punch through someone's chest and not do any damage is something that needs to be fixed. Being able to slide around the ground whenever you're running and throwing items needs to be fixed. But for the most part, like the actual ability of the characters is advancing, and that's good. I still need to be able to do punch or additional punches like high punch, low punch, punches from different sides of the body, kicks, all that good stuff. But for now, I'm choosing to only start with one punch and one throw of an item, and then just see if I can get that all working, and then smooth that out so that it actually feels okay with those, and then I'll add on the rest of the stuff. But so yeah, that is actually it for this week. I appreciate you guys watching again, as always. So I look forward to next week, where hopefully I've got a little bit more smoothed out punching and moving around and all that stuff that's feeling kind of gross. I do want to focus on that for the next week and get a little more polish on it. But yeah, see you guys next week. Bye.